Oh my God, he's got a kid with him. Oh my God, he's got a kid with him. Oh my God.
Hate group Stand Up to Racism broke the coronavirus lockdown to hold a demonstration on a petrol station forecourt against the police for arresting a drink driver. The reasons that they had this demonstration was because A, the drink driver was black, and supposedly because he was tasered in front of his young child. The same young child that the black man had been driving around with whilst over the influence and at excessive speeds.
And I'm going to hand over to our final speaker, which is Nahella Ashraf from Stand Up to Racism.
Thanks very much. And thanks very much, everybody, for organising the meeting, and well done to all the other speakers. And it's a bit difficult, us always going last, especially after going after Roger, because, you know, everything's already been said. But let's be quite honest, isn't it absolutely shocking? It's the 21st century, and we have a situation where black people are 4 times more likely to die of a virus than white people. And I think that absolutely smacks of an unequal society. And I don't care what people say, let's be very, very clear about this. This is not about our genes, and this is not about the culture that we live in. Somehow, you know, they like to tell us that we're too stupid, that we don't understand about social isolating. This has nothing to do with that. This is plain and simple about racism. It's about institutionalized racism. Like all the other speakers have talked about, this is about the fact that actually, as black people, we are more likely to be poor and therefore more likely to be in precarious work. We're more likely to live in overcrowded accommodation. And let's be quite honest, if you're in some of the most poorest areas of this country, you're going to be very lucky to get a lot of green space. And unlike, let's be honest, unlike the Prime Minister, when he got ill, he was able to leave hospital and go and recruit and rest in his weekend home. Nobody said anything about the fact that he was breaking the lockdown rules when he did that. But we know that if we turn up in the local parks, we're going to get stopped and searched, and we're going to ask why we're out there. That's what it is to be a black person in Britain right now. It's not just about being in the park. As black people, we're out and we're buying important, you know, supplies, much needed supplies for our vulnerable relatives or neighbours. We are going to be the ones that get stopped. And we know that. Not so long ago, there was reports of that happening in Manchester, where a young man was out. He had been dropping off supplies to family members, vulnerable family members who were isolating, and he was stopped. And yes, yet again, he was harassed for being out there. And this is happening up and down the country. And Stand Up to Racism, it's one of the things that we said, that actually, if you do give police more powers, we as a black community are going to be at the forefront of as a the consequence of those powers. You know, we know that the police abuse those powers. People will have heard by now the absolutely shocking video that's out on social media of a black man holding on to he was carrying his child, who absolutely sounded terrified, and he was tasered by the police while he was at the forecourt of a petrol station. That's absolutely shocking. The people who have seen that video, they'll see the fact that actually he wasn't given any warning before they tasered him, and then when he was on the ground, they continued to taser him. And I think that's an absolute disgrace. And you know, there's been lots of press coverage about it, and actually it was interesting. One of the journalists said to me, what do you think about what happened? You've seen the video, what did it feel like, you know, in relation to some of the videos that we've seen coming out of America? And actually it's very similar. The guy had a taser, but can you imagine if he had a weapon? Well, he did have a weapon, but a gun, you know, that it would be terrible. And it really is, you know, racial profiling, and the way that he was treated in that way because he was black. It turns out actually that he was a health worker, he works with the NHS. And this is how he's being treated. It's an absolute disgrace. And I do want to say this, that actually, we all know what's going on with the deaths because of COVID, and we all recognise the fact that it is because poverty. But the other thing I want to say also is you have to recognise that the backbone of the NHS is migrant workers. This is something we have always said, and I think that's the other reason why we're seeing a massive number of deaths of health workers happening to be black, because we are the ones on the front line of the NHS. And I know there's been some kind of thing about, asking Trust to reassess, black workers in the NHS. Let's be very clear. The NHS cannot afford to take the black workers off the front line, because actually they are the majority of workers. They can't afford to do it, and therefore we are, as a consequence of that, more likely to come into contact with people who have the virus and therefore at risk of being, becoming ill, if not dying. And I think at the same time as, talking about the fact that the NHS workers are at risk, migrant workers in particular, I don't know whether people are aware, but migrant workers who are working for the NHS at the present time and at risk of actually becoming ill themselves or, risking their lives, are having to pay for that privilege. NHP migrant workers are having to pay a charge for using the NHS, and I think that's an absolute disgrace. And actually, I think that charge should be scrapped, not just for themselves, but also for their families. The other thing we need to be aware of, that these NHS workers are more at risk of losing their lives, or also paying massive, visa fees. And I know the government has talked about, if they've got a visa coming up, they're going to allow the fees to be scrapped and automatically allowed to stay in for another year. But actually, what happens if that worker dies? What happens to those families who are here because of that worker who's working for the NHS? I mean, you just can't make this stuff up. The fact that there are migrant workers who are risking their lives, there are black workers who are risking their lives to keep this country going. And let's be quite honest, it is those very workers who the Home Secretary not so long ago, in fact, constantly goes on about, these low-skilled workers that they don't want. These low-skilled workers that they don't want in this country. Well, actually, those low-skilled workers are the very workers who are the key workers that are keeping this country together. And I think it's an absolute disgrace. And I do want to say, NHS England has said that they're having an inquiry. Well, can I just say, as a Muslim woman, I have no trust and I have no faith in any inquiry which involves Trevor Phillips and his company. And I think we need a proper inquiry. We need an inquiry like we had into the death of Stephen Lawrence and how that was handled. We need an inquiry that looks at the broader picture, not just, a very narrow scope. We want a real public independent inquiry, and we want action now. I think there are lots of people who are saying, well, we need to come together, get behind the government. We're all in this together. We are not all in this together, actually. Black people are not all in this together. And on the back of the statement that was part yesterday of Boris Johnson, clearly working class people are not in this together with the likes of the Parliament, the MPs who get to work from home, the middle class people who get to work from home and travel around in their cars. And, it's working class people that have to use the public health service, not just a health service, but the public transport system that puts us all at risk. And I think we need to get organised. I can't reiterate that, and Roger said it earlier, but we need to get organised. We need to fight for an inquiry. We need to fight for answers now, because actually this really is a matter of life and death, and in particular the lives of black people, but I think generally from the back of the statement it will be wider working class people as well. Well, let's stand together, let's fight this government, let's demand answers, and let's have change.
Thank you very much indeed, absolutely. And I think, it goes back to exactly what Roger was saying. We've got to organise, and we've got to keep pushing and keep going, and we're not going to stop until we get the inquiry and we get the justice that everybody deserves.
Oh my God, he's got a kid with him. Oh my God, he's got a kid with him. Oh my God.